So this kind of video is going to be more of an experiment on the channel. I recently renamed the channel to Rants, right? And that's because I wanted to actually, kind of rant on the channel. I wanted to talk about things that interest me. I didn't just want to read off a script all the time. But I had to get back into the swing of things with YouTube. I had to get back to, just getting used to uploading again and creating the kind of content that you guys enjoy. So I decided, why don't I, every now and then, just have this kind of a video, a little bit of an unscripted, kind of a mini podcast on a specific topic. I wouldn't even call it a podcast. The only similarity between this and a podcast would be that it's unscripted and it's just me talking about a topic. What I wanted to talk about today, specifically, is the whole drama surrounding the Hogwarts Legacy video game. Now, I grew up on Harry Potter. And I'm sure many of you also grew up on Harry Potter. I think I was like in the first grade or maybe even younger when I got the very first Harry Potter movie. I think I owned the book already, but I'd never read it. And I watched the first movie on VHS, and that just made me fall in love with the world and the characters. And I picked up the books as they came out. I was reading them as the movies came out. I went to the cinemas and watched them. From, like I said, I was about 5 till whenever they finished, and I think I was just about entering high school or something like that. So a really large part of my childhood was spent reading Harry Potter, watching Harry Potter. It was a really big part of my childhood. It's what really got me into fantasy. So Harry Potter is responsible for a lot of what I find interesting now as an adult. A lot of things that I enjoy now, a lot of topics and a lot of literary conventions that I enjoy is very likely because I enjoyed Harry Potter as a child. I'm pretty sure this is a similar story to most millennials, right? You started with Harry Potter when you were young, it stayed with you for quite a long time, and you've been a fan ever since. Now, obviously, there'll be many of you who never really got into it, but there is a sizable chunk of millennials who basically grew up around Harry Potter. It was the cultural phenomenon of our time. As Star Wars was back in the 80s, Harry Potter was the cultural zeitgeist for us. And I also basically played all the video games. I played, at the very least, the first Harry Potter video game up until the 6th. I don't think I ever played the last one. Yeah, I also really enjoyed the Harry Potter video games. I don't want to paint the picture like I was some super Harry Potter nerd, but it was the main franchise that I was really into. So I played the video games, I watched the movies, I read the books. I tried to just consume the media that was available, It was essentially the big thing for me back then. Now, I was delighted to hear that there was going to be a new video game coming out, but this time an open world one, which is something we Harry Potter fans have been asking for a long time. Only issue is I don't really play games that much anymore. Like, I still haven't played Hogwarts Legacy yet. I guess that's not too bad because the game's not going anywhere. I'll get to it at some point. I'm just not someone who has that kind of free time anymore. Point is, I was delighted to hear that there would be something like that for the Harry Potter fandom. It's something we've been asking for ages. Now, a lot of people are really upset about this game, specifically because they don't like J.K. Rowling, or they don't like what J.K. Rowling said. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of things that J.K. Rowling has said. J.K. Rowling has a lot of opinions I disagree with. I'm not going to make a list or anything, but she has a lot of opinions that I'm not a fan of, I don't agree with. But that never diminished my enjoyment of Harry Potter. Her opinions wouldn't be the barrier to me enjoying something. Her opinions basically have no bearing on whether or not I'm going to enjoy the franchise. And I still enjoy it. I plan on doing a Harry Potter reread soon. It's been many years since I've read it, and I thought, you know what, I should read it again. So it's on the list. It's on the list. Point is, just because I disagree with J.K. Rowling on a lot of topics doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy the work she's created. That kind of comes to the core of what I'm trying to get at here. I heavily ascribe to death of the author, and I'll get on to explaining death of the author in a moment, but I wanted to just preface by explaining what my opinions are around Harry Potter, my background around it, and what I think of J.K. Rowling. So now that you know I'm not a fan of a lot of the things that she said, and I am a fan of the Harry Potter franchise, and I've played a lot of the games, etc. Now that you understand that, please take to heart what I'm about to say. Boycotting the game is retarded, and it spectacularly backfired. If you are someone who boycotted this game, look, okay, let me put it this way. If you are someone who just decided not to purchase this game, purely out of a personal choice, that is 100% fine. If you are someone who boycotted this game and actively campaigned against others purchasing it, playing it, etc., you are, sorry to say this, retarded. What did you think was gonna happen? Have you ever heard of the Streisand effect? Imagine Star Wars, the original trilogy comes out, right? And 10 years later, they decide they're gonna do a prequel series. And let's say George Lucas said some things that people don't agree with, and they try to actively boycott the first of the prequel series. Now, nobody knows if the prequel series are going to be good. Nobody knows if they're going to enjoy it. But they know they enjoyed the original trilogy. Imagine the hubris that it takes to think that you're going to tell the entire fandom that loves this IP that, oh, you're a bigot for playing it. Oh, you're a bigot for enjoying what's coming next. For example, the prequel trilogy. It's the same thing. How do you think you're going to coerce an entire fandom into not playing a game? If the game was utter crap, I can understand. If the game was something that just completely flopped, I get it. But you hadn't even played it yet. You hadn't even played it yet. How do you expect to tell people don't play this game if you can't say it's bad? I'm sure a lot of people were waiting for the reviews to see, hey, is the game good? Is the game bad? But I also know that millions of people pre-ordered the game. So this IP already had a bunch of fans in the wings waiting. But on top of that, you had the Streisand effect. People are tired of being moralized to by the woke mob. Just as people were tired back in the early 2000s of being moralized to by the Christians who thought video games were causing violence, today people are being moralized to by the woke mob, saying that, oh, you're a bad person for enjoying this. You're a bad person for doing this or doing that when it harms nobody and it's just something that you enjoy. People are tired of that. So when people saw an opportunity to support a author whose works they'd enjoyed, to support a game studio whose games seemed to be good, when people had that option and it would piss off the woke mob, do you not think that they would take it? So yes, this boycott completely backfired. Just look at the amount of purchases this game has. Just look at the amount of people enjoying the game. Look at the amount of hype that surrounded it. It became this whole saga of the internet for the beginning of this year. And they brought that on themselves. The woke mob who tried to cancel this game brought that on themselves. So on one hand, I find that actually quite amusing, just thinking of how they honestly thought that they were going to somehow coerce people into not buying a game. How they honestly thought that talking so much about a game would not bring attention to it, etc. Like, I find it amusing, just that level of hubris. But I do have to say, the vitriol from the leftists and the trans community and things like that, the people who were supposedly very triggered by this game, the vitriol from them was absolutely repugnant. It was absolutely disgusting. I saw clips of streamers being bullied into crying, being bullied into mental breakdowns because people would harass them for playing a game.
Flip up and now it's like whatever. I'm almost like thinking of just like either going offline or like I'm barely into the second combat here, and every time I look at chat, it's just the conversation is just like
maybe we can do like
bothering
I'll
me.
be right back, like a little break or something.
You can take a break if you want. I'll just stop talking and I'll just go fight and do the combat. Y'all done did it now.
These people have no lives outside of the internet. It's as if they've never touched grass. To bully someone to the point of a mental breakdown for playing a game, I don't understand how you can claim any moral superiority. Not in this case. If you want people to join your cause or to join your side, tell you what, instead of trying to corrupt what exists, why don't you create your own stories? Why don't you create your own video games? Make them good enough for everyone to want to play them, and you can put your own messaging in there. But I suppose you can't, because clearly, if you look at the state of modern Hollywood, if you look at the state of a lot of modern creative projects, video games as well, it's almost as if the woke mob can't create. They can only corrupt. And in fact, I have a whole rant that I want to do on that as well. Basically, this is a concept that I picked up from another YouTube channel where they talked about the progressive skin suit, which I think fits very well. So I'll definitely be making a video on that, so I don't want to go into it too much right now. But the point is, number one, absolutely amusing seeing you guys flail and sputter as you think you're going to cancel this game and it just becomes super successful. It's made my year so far. Let's just say that. Also, absolutely disgusted at the level of vitriol and hate that came from the supposedly tolerant and loving left. Now, I know there's a lot of people on the left who completely disavow the woke mob. So for you guys, great. I think we're all on the same page there. I have no problem with you if you're on the left. I just cannot stand the woke mob. I see it as a product of the left, but not necessarily representative of the entire left. Anyway, so all of this happened. This whole boycott failed because of the death of the author no longer being adhered to. There used to be a time where you could enjoy a story, and even though you may not agree with the politics or the opinions of the author, or maybe they did things or said things that are completely morally reprehensible, you could still enjoy their work. The quality of the work is what outshines the opinions and words and actions of the author. For example, we've got obviously the whole J.K. Rowling thing, but the thing is J.K. Rowling's opinions are mostly hated by the left. Now, there are some others who are annoyed by her because she is actually someone that's on the left. She's just not woke. She is a feminist, she's always been a feminist and has a lot of opinions on women and men that I don't agree with. That being said, it doesn't mean I can't enjoy her work. Just because she's on the left, maybe not the far left, but on the left doesn't mean I can't enjoy what she writes. Then you look at other authors, like, for example, the classic example would be Lovecraft. Clearly a deeply racist man, but I don't see how Lovecraft and the whole Cthulhu mythos has been attacked to this level. Now, I know there are instances where Lovecraft was they tried to cancel him, they tried to change his works, etc. At the very least, I heard it through the grapevine a while ago, but the amount of hate towards J.K. Rowling is definitely unparalleled if you compare any other author. I might be wrong, and you can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's just what I can see right now. So clearly, if Lovecraft can be enjoyed, then so can J.K. Rowling. And for example, George Orwell, I really enjoy 1984. I briefly read Animal Farm in high school, but I kind of want to read it again. But for me, George Orwell is a really good writer and a really good storyteller. I don't agree with any of his politics. He was a socialist, believe it or not. He was just not a authoritarian. So even though he's on the left, which I'm not, even though he has politics that I completely disagree with, because he argues against state control and the state's overarching totalitarian impulses, because he argues against that and creates stories against that, I have no problem with the politics he holds, because he values things that I value as well, that being freedom. So I don't care what his politics are, I'm still going to enjoy the story. This whole concept around death of the author is something that we used to follow. It's something that we used to all agree with. Yes, maybe the creator was repugnant, but if the work is good, the work is good. How many great works of art, whether it's paintings, music, books, movies even, how many of those would have to be completely wiped from collective consciousness? How many of those were really good pieces of art, really good pieces of media, and we would have to completely throw them away because someone involved in the creation process was a morally reprehensible person? I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of them. I think the modern issue is that people are just so focused around moral busybodying that they just can't stop to enjoy a story. You need to use the author for context, but don't let it control how you enjoy the work. So yes, maybe you read a Lovecraft story and you are aware of his racist opinions, and that can definitely add some context to the story. Knowing that George Orwell was a socialist, whilst writing a book that a lot of people says decries socialism and communism and kind of, dumps on it, it gives you that kind of context to understand, oh, okay, it lets you kind of see it in a different light. Nothing wrong with that. So you can use the author for context to give you an idea around the story. It doesn't mean you don't read the story. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy the story. That is the whole idea behind Death of the Author. People need to allow themselves to enjoy stories again. separate the work from the author. Otherwise, you always have to do a moral cleanliness purity check on the creator before you can enjoy some kind of media. What kind of world is that? So I do heavily ascribe to death of the author. I will still enjoy Harry Potter regardless of what J.K. Rowling says. And another point that I want to make on death of the author is that it also means that if the author, like J.K. Rowling, and this is something about J.K. Rowling I really don't enjoy, if the author says, oh, in my book this character is like this, or this character is actually that, I honestly don't care what J.K. Rowling says about her characters. If she wants her characters to be seen a certain way or portrayed a certain way, she needs to include it in the narrative. Dumbledore was not gay in the Harry Potter books. Maybe in J.K. Rowling's mind he was, maybe in the way she wrote the character she wanted him to be, but he never read that way. I never picked up on that. And to include it in a spin-off movie series that I'm not really interested in watching. I think I watched the first two and got bored. If it's not in the books, it doesn't exist. So to summarize, J.K. Rowling got made fun of a lot in the early days of the social media internet for retroactively making her characters gay or different race, etc, etc. I don't adhere to any of that. If J.K. Rowling is going to come out and say, oh, this character was gay, that character was trans, etc, etc, I don't know. No, sorry. You're an author. I appreciate the work you've created. But once the work is out there for others to enjoy, your opinion is about as strong as a very dedicated, very knowledgeable fan, which means I don't have to take it seriously. A lot of people might call me a bit hypocritical because, oh, but you listen to Brandon Sanderson and what he says about the Cosmere. That's different. Brandon Sanderson doesn't say a character is like this, a character is like that. He never does. Go watch his live streams where he actually talks about the books. He will mostly talk about what he was trying to achieve with characters or with different parts of the story. And then he'll talk about the mechanics of the magic system and the mechanics of how certain things happened. And if people ask spoilery questions, he'll tell them to read and find out. But he never tries to impose on you an opinion about a character or an interpretation of the story or a plot point or anything like that. He never tries to say that, oh, this character is so. He sometimes does, but that's when he made it explicit in the book and some people didn't pick up on it. Trust me, after many years of J.K. Rowling doing this stuff, I would be hypersensitive if Brandon Sanderson tried to pull the same. And if he has, please point it out to me. Maybe I missed it. I could be wrong, but that is the difference. I listen to Brandon Sanderson because he gives us more insight into how he's constructing the world and the magic system. And sometimes he also gives us very good insight into how he goes about writing these characters, things like that. But he never tries to tell us how we should see the characters. But I guess that's basically everything I wanted to talk about today. Essentially, is just saying, you know, this whole Hogwarts Legacy thing, the whole blow up because of it, was completely unnecessary and it backfired spectacularly, and I hope things like this keep backfiring. People are getting tired of the woke mob, so this is great. I'm happy with this. And just to remind people to, you know, try adhering to the death of the author. Try enjoying a story without considering the opinions of the author. Just enjoy a story. Just try to enjoy stories again. That's what we're all here for, isn't it? All of us book nerds, all of us movie nerds, everyone who enjoys story. Why does it matter what the creator said if the work is good? Understand what they said for context. Maybe they're trying to push a message, and understanding what they said is important for that purpose. But nonetheless, enjoy the story. Also, Dumbledore was not gay.